so many um queer women specifically in WWE who have been celebrated, and like that part of who they are is, it seems like very much so up to them, like how much of that bleeds into the ring. You have
Yeah.
people like Sonya Deville, who, you know, she is very open and, wants to be representing the company as a lesbian.
Yeah.
Um, and then you have people who are a little more quiet about it. And I if I had to guess, and based on what I heard Shayna say in that one interview, like she was just like, I don't want that to be the defining part of me. Like, people don't basically walk around being like, I'm straight, and have that
Yeah.
be like their defining quality. Um, I think to her, she wants to make sure she is celebrated for the right reasons. I'd argue that you can do both, but to each individual their own in this sort of thing.
Yeah. Agreed. It's interesting how one thing I had on my list is a wrestler that I love that I actually got to stand next to and I was really nervous next to was Fred Rosser, formerly known as Darren Young. Um, you think about that, it was 2013 when he had that infamous TMZ interview that he just casually was like, "Well, I'm gay and I'm really happy," like that was what he said.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about that all the time. And then John Cena got interviewed right after, was like, "That's cool." Like it was just like, which was kind of cool. But I think about that in contrast now, 11-year difference, right? We have people like Sonya Deville. We like if you look at like the women's division, there's a lot of queerness. Like even just in WWE, look at the women's division, there's a lot of like openly queer women in that division.
Yeah.
And it's cool. It's really cool to see where we've come from, because it was very taboo when, Darren Young said those things. And, you know, but who knows whether it hurt his career, which isn't right. I'm not justifying that, of course, in any way. But when you're open about things in industries that aren't ready to hear those things, then there are almost these consequences, right, for that. So I don't know. But I was always really like into like the primetime players. And then when Darren Young came out, I like lost my shit. So that was really cool. And then getting to stand next to Fred Rosser at an event and just knowing that like he was like next to me and I got to watch him wrestle and like run out and like it was really cool. But and then just seeing like even if you're in a place that does not respect you and accept you, like now he's at New Japan, like doing like badass matches. So it's like it's really like this message of hope for queer people that like if something does not work out for you, if somebody tries to shut a door in your face for being the way that you are, for being authentically yourself, there are other paths available that are ready to accept you and love you. And like, so it was just like a really cool full circle message. How when he got let go, I was really upset, but you see that everything works out. There's not like a one mold for everybody. So it's a cool message in the long run.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I haven't My cat Scarlet rubbed herself on my face before we started, and since the beginning of I've been battling feeling like hair attached to my lipstick. So, if you're watching this, that's what's going on.
That's what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm melting from the heat and battling cat hair on my lipstick, which I've
Yeah.
now got on my chin. Okay. Moving moving in. Although I did want to say, like, while you were next to him, were you like just beaming, like trying to implant from your mind into his, like, love you, you're amazing.
Kind of, yeah. I was totally giving him all the vibes because he was also next to Moxie, who is like they were tagging that night, and Moxie's like one of my favorite indie wrestlers of all time, and they wrestle in Arizona, and so they wrestle frequently for like AWF. So I'm at their shows all the time. Just the whole presentation, the aesthetic, like the pageantry. I'm obsessed. And so like they were tagging, and so I was literally just like losing my shit. I literally turned to the AWF champion is Chubby Depp, who I know, and like I turned to him and I was like, I'm freaking the fuck out right because I'm next to like two people who I just think are like the coolest people ever.
Mm-hmm. that is awesome.
Yeah.
It was
And
so
then
hard
Chubby's
for me
always
after
so
I
casual. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say Chubby's so casual, like just go talk to them. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
I don't know. I didn't. They were trying to sell merch to people, so I wasn't gonna just walk up and be like, oh.
I love you.
Yeah, totally, and then just walk.
I'm not buying anything. Bye.
Yeah.
This is awesome. It was so hard for me not to clap, like for
Oh, that's
chance.
funny. Yeah.
It's so like I'm sure it happens the social conditioning we go through as wrestling fans. Like when
Yeah.
people say certain things, I can't help but like have stuff come tumbling out of my mouth sometimes, and it makes sense to nobody else around me usually. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
do 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 do.
Oh my God, that's so funny you say that because yesterday my dad totally rolled his eyes at me because he asked about a wrestler and he's like, "Are they a good guy or a bad guy?" And I was like, "They're a face, dad." And then he was like, and he just looked away from me. I was like, "What?" And my mom was like, "He doesn't know what that means." And I was like, "Then why can't he just say he doesn't know what that means?" Like to me, that's like common vernacular, but people don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like my dad's the one that got me into wrestling. So I was like, "You don't know what that means?" That's kind of like crazy, you know? At least to
Yeah,
me, with wrestling fan bias.
it's yeah, I feel like that was one of the like first things that although I started reading wrestling books young, so maybe that's why. Um,
Maybe.
or like our generation having the internet and seeing interviews with heel and face and all of that.
True.
Um, but yeah, when I I realized when Chelsea went with me to the Smash Masters show, the first one and the second one, I had to do the same thing where I would be like, "Oh, they're heel, bad guy, bad guy." We boo them because they're smart. That
That's
was the
funny.
guy's gimmick. Like I was like, he has like intelligent or something as part of his gimmick, and I was like, that means he's a bad guy. So us sitting here with our masters and your PhD, we have to boo the smart person. We're gonna talk down to everybody else.
I love that so much. I
Yeah.
also love that like Chelsea's getting into wrestling. That's so cool.
Oh, it brings me so much joy. Yeah. Um, is it my
Yes.
turn? Okay. Um, so I have, and I went back and forth on whether or not to put this one on there, but I
Yeah.
decided to go for it. I put the
Okay.
Golden Lovers. Um, the reason I went back and forth on it was simply
Okay.
because like they themselves may or may not be part of the community. Like
Sure.
um certainly allies. They're like,
Yeah.
but even just there's such a pair like the obvious thing with so the Golden Lovers for those who would not know would be Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi in New Japan. They were a tag team that if you're watching AEW, you've probably seen like Ibushi be referred to as Kenny Omega's heart and all of this. So it's
Yeah.
nice that it has bled over. But they
Yeah.
kept it they they never directly said anything, but like they would like kiss and stuff during matches and
Right.
stuff like that, and like just this
Yeah.
soft romance. I don't know how else to put it currently, but you compare how they were celebrated and beloved to Billy and Chuck in WWE like a decade beforehand. And that was
Right.
just they were a comedy act and
Hmm.
you who at the end as they were doing their wedding ceremony basically they were like we're not gay
Right. Right.
and like I mean there's more problematic shit that went along with them throughout that but um
It's interesting, like how you like that was in. It's so funny, like when you think about like even getting mentioned, like queerness or gayness on like TV was like considered in a way progressive, even though when you go back and like obviously break everything down, it is so messed up. But it's so
Yeah.
funny how like people want credit for that being like it's still part of like this gay like wrestling canon, right? Even though
Yeah.
it's still so messed up. So it's just funny how like because I had on my list and I had an asterisk next to it because I'm always like, is like Gold Dust
Oh yeah.
because of there's so many problematic things that you could break down with Gold Dust, but at the same time, and he's also not, to my knowledge, I don't think Dustin Rhodes is queer, but he portrayed this character and like that was like such a gay icon. Like so many of my queer friends who love wrestling, like Gold Dust was like a gateway drug for them, right? Like into wrestling. And like, so it's interesting how these things like kind of fringe on queer culture, but they're not queer culture in a way, or like they're problematic inherently. So it's just like a really like,
Yeah.
especially during the Attitude Era, it's just interesting.
Yeah. Or I think they were a part of the ruthless aggression era. Billy and
Yeah,
Chuck.
Bill and Chuck. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
But yeah, Gold Dust, I mean, because when him and at the time his wife Terry Reynolds started, like, it was definitely sexual deviancy, but
Sure.
it went everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you could not contain whatever was in that man's head. Like,
Like it's like Goldust is like one of my favorite like wrestling characters of all time.
I
But
love Gold
it's
Dust, but problematic as fuck.
exactly. And so it's so funny like how there's that's what's so frustrating about doing all this research is because it reminds me of the time that we grew up in, right? And but it makes me happy and hopeful for the future. But still you just look back and you're like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, you kind of have to wonder if, like, Omega and Ibushi were like, yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like I almost feel like that was a conversation they had to have, right? With like looking back at like Billy and Chuck, they were like, here's what we're not gonna do, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And it's funny, like, talking about Gold Dust, and then they were the Golden Lovers,
Yes,
even though there's no connection there. It's just funny.
there's not.
It's
Yeah.
not. There's not. Um, but I mean, even that tag team name suggests,
Yeah.
huh, lovers. I wonder if perhaps they're in a relationship. And to this day, um, now Kenny Omega's been very good about keeping, like, his private life private. Um,
Yep. That's
but
why none of y'all know that him and I are secretly together. See? He's that good about it.
yep.
I
But
mean, sorry,
but
you're gonna have to
MJ,
cut this out. You're gonna have to cut this out.
oh, of course, yeah. I was gonna say, but MJ, he often has facial hair. Are you sure?
Maybe I'll stick with my other side romance with Takeshita that also nobody knows about.
That is another beautiful man. My God.
Yeah.
That's uh the beautiful men of, instead of Glow, it'll be the beautiful men of wrestling.
Yeah, right.
BMW.
MW. Beep beep.
We'll start our own promotion. That's what it'll be called. It'll be terrible.
It'll be terrible. This doesn't feel progressive. This isn't progressive, right?
No, it's not. This is a meat market. Go out there and stretch your stuff, gentlemen.
This is a meat market. Oh my, I did not think that the expression meat market was going to get thrown around in this podcast episode. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, me either. To
Yeah.
be fair, before we started recording, we were like, we don't know where this is gonna go. Because again, like always, we don't discuss anything beforehand. Um,
No,
I knew you were gonna talk about Anthony Bowens, like, so I kept him
I
on my list, but
yeah, I did warn Sabrina. I was like, I'm going to say Anthony Bowens.
yeah.
And I knew you were going to say Golden Lovers for sure.
Oh yeah. Um,
You know, it's really funny too. Like one last thing about Golden Lovers
oh yeah.
is there's like a whole community. Like I'm not part of it, but I see it. I have mutuals that are really into fan fiction, wrestling fan fiction. And Golden Lovers was like this catalyst for wrestling fan fiction in so many ways. And like also it opened up a lot of queer people into wrestling because they were like,
100%.
you could see yourself represented in a storyline, whether it's kayfabe, whether it's not, whether, you know, it's a real romance or if it's not kind of a thing. So it's kind of cool that like it's attracted a different subculture and brought that wrestling into that. Like I don't know. So it's cool. So it's like a little gateway for queerness into wrestling, and I love that gimmick for that.
Yeah, and there is on YouTube a like mm, documentary about like the Golden Lovers, and you can learn a whole bunch more about them. And like specifically, it's like they talk to queer wrestling fans about how much that storyline meant to them, and the fan fiction,
Oh
of course, is
wow.
brought up. Yeah,
I didn't even know that. That's so cool. I'm
highly,
gonna write that down.
yeah, highly recommend. It's an old one because I think it was back when Kenny Omega was still in New Japan, so that's 5, 6 years old now. But
I'm gonna look it up. Speaking
yeah,
of documentaries too, I just found out there's one called Out in the Ring that came out in 2022 that I've added to my list on Prime, but I have not watched it yet. But I'm really excited to dig into that one.
yeah, I want to watch that as well. I have not yet. MJ again gets the credit for finding that. Um, the things
All this
I find,
extensive research. I've been trying to find anything I can to celebrate queerness. It has been rough out here. It has been rough.
I'm going to give a very honorable mention to one of my favorite indie matches. Um, because part of the queer community, of course, is drag.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite matches, surprise, surprise, involves Orange
Surprise,
Cassidy,
surprise.
um,
Oh,
where
yeah.
him and who most people will know as Priscilla Kelly, swap gear and like they wrestle
Gigi
as each
Dolan.
other. Gigi Dolan, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. I people will know by her indie name, not her NXT name. Yeah. Whoops. But they completely switch gear and personas, and I
Gimmick.
think it was like their actual gear too, because she had to like roll up the pants.
Yeah.
But it is fantastic, and she was I mean, we all know the gear that a lot of female wrestlers choose to wear. And that would be what it was that would be what Orange Cassidy was wearing.
As a huge Orange Cassidy fan, and that being like your main wrestling crush,
Hmm.
how did you feel seeing your man in some Gigi Dolan gear?
It just made me so happy because I was like, what an ally, what a fantastic human being. Just made my
Seeing
love
him
for
that,
her.
I was gonna say, seeing him that comfortable in his sexuality, did you go, yeah, exactly, right? You're
Uh-huh.
like, yep, yep, reconfirmed
Check.
your love. Yeah,
Yep, checking off another box.
I love it.
Oh yeah. But that concludes my list. Is there anything that you would like?
I do. I feel like I would be remiss if I did not mention the fabulous Nyla Rose,
Oh yes.
who was the first trans wrestler to sign with a well known American promotion, as well as the first trans wrestler to win a title in a major American wrestling promotion within a year of being signed, even.
Yeah. Nyla is, I wish she
A
was
gem.
like a gem. I wish she was also highlighted more
Yeah.
frequently. Like, and she's so freaking funny. Like,
Yeah.
she like her humor is top notch. Even watching, she's a big gamer, so she'll be on
Mm-hmm.
like AEW arcade and stuff. And I'm not a gamer, but I love watching her stuff because she's so funny, like just off the cuff stuff. Like give
So
give that
funny.
woman a microphone and send her out into the ring. We'll all have a good time.
Hell yeah.
She won
I
that
was really
Twitter award too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when during maybe it was during the pandemic, AEW was doing like awards and she got
Uh-huh.
like best Twitter.
Oh, hands down, yeah. I don't even go on Twitter, but I see screen captures all the time of her tweets. They're hilarious.
Oh yeah.
Um, I really loved when, like a year ago, her and Athena had that Ring of Honor feud. It was so good. And like it, I would love AEW to feature Nyla more. They are getting so many negative comments anytime they post anything about Nyla. And I wish that instead of choosing to not feature her, they would feature her to, one, I loved having things rubbed in a homophobe's face. But two, also like to promote inclusivity and to get you have to normalize things. So why are we not showcasing somebody who is incredible in the ring and can cut a pretty damn good promo, is hilarious. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing I feel like Nyla can't do. And I just it's also wrestling. So I get really pissed off when people make that whole argument that it's a trans person. They shouldn't be if they're a trans woman, you shouldn't be competing against women. It's like this is fucking wrestling. Like this is wrestling.
Yeah.
They're like I don't know. It's crazy. Like if Hulk Hogan can beat people up with a fucking leg drop finisher,
Mm-hmm.
Nyla Rose can beat whoever.
And not only that, but just because like someone is of the same like biological gender of somebody
Mm-hmm.
else does not mean that that it's automatically a fair fight either. Like
Yeah,
e-
exactly.
even looking at wrestling, like recent female wrestling history, Rhea versus Zelina Vega. Um,
Yeah,
Zelina is an itty bitty woman,
yeah,
and Rhea Ripley can beat up half the men's roster. Um,
yep.
I mean, not that I don't think the Zelina Vega could take out some dudes as well, but like
Mm-hmm.
there's a clear size disparity. Like they gave us a hell of a match, but it was very clear like who was going to be winning that. Um,
Exactly.
Nyla, there are women that she can very much so believably face as a woman. You know, actually, I think the only like really small people, well, no, because there's in AEW Red Velvet, she's really tiny, and then
Yeah.
so is Layla
You say
Hirsch,
Sky?
huh?
Well, so is Sky is tinier, but then you have Juliet Hart who's tiny.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, she has the spooky factor though. I mean, once you add witchcraft in there, you can do anything.
See, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. People are getting pissed about Nyla Rose being in a ring. We can have people basically casting We can have fucking Chris Jericho shooting fireballs at people. You know what I mean? But we can't have Nyla Rose on TV.
And
Come
just
on.
shouting at people. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
Learning
exactly.
tree. Ah.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother episode.
I mean, this exploding barbed wire death matches. Like,
Yeah, for real, right?
there's so many things. Yeah, yeah. And I also love Nyla Rose because she is, of course, indigenous and um
Yeah,
she
the
starts,
native beast.
yeah. And she's great representation there as well. Like
Mhm.
for the Native American community. So like she's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Thankfully,
Yeah,
like she works out.
yeah, for real. Um, yeah, touching on that too, like her logo essentially is the MMIW
Hmm.
hand, like the bloody
Yes.
hand.
The missing,
I,
murdered, and indigenous women. Which if you don't know what we're
Mhm.
talking about, please do Google. It's horrifying and um
It's real.
yeah. In my opinion, it is the continued genocide of the Native people, which has never stopped in the
Yeah,
United States or Canada, based on laws and everything else. But you know, that's also a whole other, not necessarily wrestling podcast. So
it's very good that you touched on that and said more about it because it's horrifying and it's wrong and it's very real. And yeah, what Sabrina said, please look it up, educate yourself on it, because there's a lot to dig into on that.
Yes. Yeah. Um, on that note, do you have anything else you'd like to add in?
I have two things
Okay.
real quick. One I thought of because you said drag and wrestling, and I love that. And it actually reminded me that there are wrestle drag shows and there are drag wrestling shows in your area. So if you ever want to go and support, you should totally check it out because it's a really fun time. And if you love pageantry, if you love cinema with wrestling, it's a good time. And then the last thing I want to touch on is we didn't mention, but it's really cool how Gabby Tuft has been highlighting their entire transition essentially on social media. Like,
Mhm.
I think that takes a lot of bravery, and it's been like when you talk about trailblazing and groundbreaking, never has a WWE wrestler or wrestler in general showcased their transition so publicly, and they're getting so much scrutiny but also so much support, and it's just like they've become like this viral sensation essentially because of their authenticity and their candidness, and
Mhm.
it's just cool to see. And it's really interesting too because as Tyler Rex had this physique that was like so like desirable by other men, other women, and so then it's like one of the most built human beings I've ever seen, right? And then going down to like a completely different physique, like the transformation has been like incredible. So I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't at least mention Gabby Tuff because I feel
Yeah.
like that entire journey has been like incredible to watch.
And I think what's really also very powerful about her sharing her journey is when she started it, she was married to a gorgeous woman, um,
Yeah,
and has a daughter who I want to say is like 12. I think that's about where Mia
we're
is,
close.
like in
Mm-hmm.
that, which is
Mm-hmm.
a rough time for kids in general and to be parents of kids who are in that
Mm-hmm.
age range. Because as someone who was once in there, dicks, they're dicks. Um, that being said, like,
Not me. I was perfect.
well, no one can touch MJ. What can I say? Um,
Can't touch this.
down, 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 down.
You want to have
Um,
more trademarked music in this video?
right? Um, but her wife, soon to be ex-wife, is like still so supportive and like was never
Yes.
angry about it and like was the first person to um put like showed her how to do makeup and everything else. And you can see it too because like how everyone does their makeup is slightly different. Like,
Distinct.
yeah, is distinct. And Gabby's mirrors her ex-wife. And then she said they're still like the best of friends, like very supportive. Um, and so is their daughter. And like for and I think this is certainly like an individual preference, but Gabby has said, like, yeah, I'm still Mia's dad. Like,
Yeah.
Mia's still gonna call me dad. It's fine. And it's probably also one of those things where because Gabby has publicly transitioned, it's
Hmm.
it's it is what it is. Like, whereas like she's never gonna have to worry about being outed. Where
Exactly.
someone who will have to, or does worry about that, they may make a very different decision. And that's perfectly valid too. Safety first.
I really love, like you touched on how supportive their daughter is. I Gabby's daughter is so funny too because Gabby will post video where it's like comments from like just homophobic people or just ignorant people, and then like their daughter will respond and just be
Yeah.
like, no, I don't feel that way at all. That's so stupid. And so it's
Yeah.
like, how do you raise a child like this? They're going to be miserable. It's like, I'm very happy. Thank you. Kind of energy.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Which I mean, they've been raising her right, clearly. Like,
Right.
is it possible that off camera she's like setting fires or something? I suppose, but I don't know
Got,
why I immediately went to arson.
I've got ears in the corner. Oh, now they're gone.
If really.
Everyone defaults to arson sometimes, right?
I mean,
No,
I
just
have been
me?
rewatching Criminal Minds, and there was an arson episode recently, so
Nice.
yeah. Uh, all righty, are we wrapping? Waka, waka, waka.
Thugonomics.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we're wrapped.
Okay. I will let you do the majority of the outro. Speaking of heavy lifting,
All right. In the name of our Lord and Savior,
Willow Nightingale,
the Babe with Power.
Power of Hoodoo, Hoodoo, you do.
Smile anyway.